itself and the economic development of the city. Huh? Do you agree? A wealthy city, a solid property tax base, therefore everyone pays their taxes, we will be able to enjoy beautiful curbsides, beautiful trees, trash pickup on a regular base, no dirt industry, yeah? Nice little neighborhoods. And let's say we do have the idea here of eminent domain, executed by local government to increase economic development with private company as partners. Welcome to Kilo versus New London. This is all pretty much in time. We're going to spend, let's see, about 10 minutes.
You got it.
Thank you. Alright. This is a landslide in abusive powers of eminent domain. That's the landslide. This is also interesting because it's also a great example of taking cases. Yeah? Also a great case of failed economic development policies and a little bit abuse here and there, paid friend, yeah? Or in this case I think husband and wife. Yeah? So what I'm going to do is I have like 3 short videos. They are somewhat redundant in content, but adding to each other things. I want you to show those videos, and then I want you to go back and read about Kilo versus New London. The book is very short about that. Google it. You're getting the emotions today. This is just scratching the surface in terms of reading. Yeah? The emotions are really brutal. As an example, as far as the eminent domain, if you don't leave, you get an eviction order. That's the same thing you get if you don't pay your rent for a few months. Yeah? They served the eviction order to those homeowners the eve of Thanksgiving. So think about it. While you're with your friends out and having a party and a blast on Wednesday night, those guys got an eviction order pinned at their home door. Yeah? From some really cool, not so cool people. Alright, so 3 short videos. Suzette Kilo tells her story at the Cato Institute. That's her making a statement. And now we have 2 little, maybe we jump actually to the 3rd one to reduce redundancy and have a quick view as 5 years later. To give you an understanding of the context, while this was going on, every time there was a court decision until a final court decision is made, other states that take private property rights serious, I guess darn serious, made changes the moment this came out. And the next day, the legal division drafted other rights, other protection and policy. I made that comment about the governor of Idaho talked at a cocktail party to his legal team. This is that time sensitive and important. What happened here? I want to show you the emotions of when we deal with planning law and zoning. We sometimes forget, yeah, it's residential zone, yeah, this is commercial office space. At the end of the day, you deal with people.
Learned in 2005 that the Fifth Amendment ultimately would not protect her home from being seized by a local government.
Fifth Amendment, constitutional takings.
The Supreme Court ruled in Kilo v. City of New London, Connecticut, that private property can be taken for increasing tax revenue. The court used a decidedly tortured definition of public use to arrive at the controversial 5-4 decision. Kilo spoke at the Cato Institute January 27, 2009. A forum for the book Little Pink House, which tells her story. The full event is available at cato.org.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Suzette Kilo, and the government stole my home.
Okay, yeah.
First, the municipal government of my hometown, New London, Connecticut, stole it. Then the state of Connecticut said it was legal for them to take it. Finally, the federal government said it was constitutional to steal not only my home, but the homes of all my neighbors, and in fact, anyone's home for the purpose of economic development. Basically, what that means, if someone who can add more to the grand list of your town or city than you and your property can be made history. Even though 40 states have passed legislation offering some protection for home and business owners, don't think your property is safe because it is not. Over 10 years ago, I was lucky enough to find a great deal on a house with a terrific view of the Thames River, the Long Island Sound, and the Atlantic Ocean in New London, Connecticut. I spent every spare moment fixing it up and making it the kind of home I had always dreamed of. I'm sure you've heard the expression, location, location, location. Well, this was the wrong location, only I didn't know it yet. Until I picked up the paper one morning in 1998 and discovered that Pfizer Pharmaceutical was coming to town. And one of the things that Pfizer did not want, according to the Pfizer executive, who just happened to be the husband of Claire Gaudiani, president of New London Development Corporation, was to look out their windows and see tenement buildings. Maybe we did not live in grand manners that the Pfizer executives lived in, but our homes were well cared for, we paid our taxes, and we lived in a neighborhood that was comfortable for us. But we weren't going to be comfortable for long. For 10 long years, we fought to keep our homes, we fought the media, we fought in the media. We fought in the city council and the legislative offices, we fought in the courts, we won the support of the public, but the politicians made our lives hell. Eviction notices were posted on our doors Thanksgiving Eve. Our neighbors' homes were demolished around us. Our streets were shut down. Some of us became ill. Some of us even died. Even the air was difficult to breathe from the demolitions and the blasting around us. But we never gave up because we believed that this land was our land. Until the United States Supreme Court told us, and the world differently. What the Supreme Court basically said was our land was only our land until someone else could make better use of it and pay more taxes. Even though we, the plaintiffs in Kelo versus New London case, lost our personal battle, the war is still being fought. As a result of the Supreme Court's unbelievable ruling, a majority of the states have passed legislation offering more protection to American property owners. Probably everyone who has ever given a speech hopes that something he or she says will be worth remembering. And I hope you remember this. If it's true that it takes an entire village to raise a child, then we and our children are in serious trouble. Although 42 states have passed laws providing more protection against the abuse of eminent domain, there are still many places where neighborhoods are destroyed to make way for malls, hotels, and spas. And the people who suffer the most are not only the American children, but also our elderly. Chief Joseph of Nez Perce Indian said, "The white man made us many promises, but he kept only one. He said he'd take our land, and he did." This still continues. Let this be the generation, be the one to bring this terrible abuse to an end. Thank you.
Suzanne Kelo was the lead plaintiff in the landmark 2005 Supreme Court case, Kelo v. City of New London, Connecticut. You can hear the full book forum at our website, cato.org.
Breathtaking, huh? The idea of, hey, this is cool stuff, eminent domain, we can use that for governmental powers to increase the public good, health, safety, and welfare, to create something new within a city, and have a deal with the folks who own the property, and we execute this tool. This is the abusive power example. Huh? Let's go straight to the third one. This is about 5 years after that landmark decision.
5 years ago, the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that the government could take away your home, your business, or your farm and give it to someone else for their private gain. But thankfully, that ruling in Kelo v. City of New London wasn't the end of the story. It was only the start of a national campaign against eminent domain abuse.
Kelo is one of the most universally despised Supreme Court decisions in our nation's history. And opposition to Kelo cuts across the usual divides you hear about in America today. And I think it's only a small exaggeration to say that about the only people who support Kelo are those who stand to benefit from eminent domain abuse: politicians, developers, and central planners.
In the 5 years since the decision, there has been an unprecedented backlash against it. Politicians and business interests may have won the battle, but they lost the war.
Less than a week after Kelo came down, the Institute for Justice launched our Hands Off My Home campaign. We were determined to translate the outrage that swept the nation after Kelo into meaningful reform in legislatures, courts, and communities across the nation where private property is being threatened by eminent domain abuse.
The results have been striking. So far, 4 state Supreme Courts have rejected the Kelo case, while another 4 have recognized greater protections for property owners facing eminent domain abuse. Moreover, 43 states have responded to Kelo with legal change, including both legislation and amendments to state constitutions.
Of the 43 states that changed their laws, at least 35 now prohibit the kind of takings used in Kelo. More than half the states went even further and reformed their laws so that cities can't label ordinary areas as blighted and then use that as an excuse to take someone's property and give it to another private party.
In addition to the successful court challenges and legislative changes, grassroots activists emboldened by the Kelo backlash have successfully fought back against projects that abuse eminent domain.
Before Kelo, it was impossible to defeat wealthy developers and their politician friends. But in just the 5 years since Kelo, we've seen 44 eminent domain abuse projects defeated at the grassroots.
Meanwhile, in New London, the Fort Trumbull project has been a total failure. After spending more than $80 million in taxpayer money, there has been no new construction whatsoever, and the area that was once a vibrant, close-knit neighborhood is now a barren field filled with demolition debris and home only to feral cats. To add insult to injury, in November 2009, Pfizer, the linchpin of the whole development project, announced it was closing its research facility next to Fort Trumbull and leaving New London for good, just as its tax abatements are about to expire. To be sure, challenges with eminent domain abuse remain. Weak state reforms must be strengthened, and the battle must continue in certain states, like New York, that have refused to reform their laws. But for Suzette Kelo and her neighbors, even though their neighborhood was lost, they know that their battle was not in vain. And Suzette's little pink house, where this all began, still stands, now in a neighborhood about a mile away from Fort Trumbull. Like Betsy Ross's house in Philadelphia and Paul Revere's home in Boston, Suzette Kelo's pink cottage stands as a monument to her and her neighbor's struggle, one that has changed this nation for the better.
Okay. That's it. I would like to, in one moment before you run right into the downloads. I had a lot of fun teaching this class. I know it's a different format, 2 professors in 2 different blocks, different set of teaching, different set of context. This is not easy material, so I hope you did follow well, you do your homeworks a little bit. Again, I did enjoy this class. I did not enjoy to torture you with very long, hour-long lectures. This is not necessarily my preferred teaching style, but it's hard to break out into groups and have like a legal discussion. There's different ways to teach this in different setups. Yeah? I hope you equally enjoyed that. This class, I hope the study guide and the discussion on the study guide earlier today is removing your exam stress. I'm pretty sure you kind of get the picture of where we're headed, what is important, what are interesting ideas. Yeah? And between 3 and 4 questions. We have 2 full hours time. The planning concept for the exam is a question would take you about 15 to 20 minutes, yeah, in writing your answer. So there will be plenty of time. So don't stress about timing. Be precise, concise, take a look at the study guide, read those chapters again with your notes, find answers, write down at least 2 or 3 sentences for each of those study guide questions. Right? It is different than just look at it and think it, than to write it. Takes a little bit more time to write it, but it's the better preparation for it. And my promise with the study guide is there is one question from the study guide that you will see for sure. Yeah? So look at all of them. You're not just preparing this for one test only. You're preparing this for the whole career as property manager. So you're going to need to know what easements are. All right? All liens. Good. Have fun, enjoy, relax, and study. See you next Wednesday, next Tuesday, 6 o'clock. I start at 6 o'clock with the exam. If you are late for traffic or other reasons, I will not give you beyond 8 o'clock. If you show up at 7:30, you will have till 8 o'clock to make this an extreme case. Okay? If you have questions, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you.